So, as some people understand, at times I do have an issue with my anger. Um, it's something that I can control because I do understand, at the basic human level, like I shouldn't be unleashing anything um, like that on anybody. And that's not to say that, um, I would, or, I have, or, I'll get to that point. Um, by the grace of God, he definitely, um, guides me in that direction because I do understand how volatile anger is. I done seen um, it play out through different people who I share, the same blood with. And I know I have certain things within me. And, those are probably things that, I need to work on removing. But um, anger is something that I want to say I struggle with as far as, like, I'm not overly angry. I'm able to contain it and then try to use it in a productive way. Um, as I've said, with my son's mother, I would get into disagreements and I would learn to go outside for a walk, which made her mad, but it worked for me. She didn't understand why I did that, but I needed to always disengage, especially when it got really heated, to, regather myself and then I'll reapproach the situation because I understand that's the best way for me to move. Because it's never good to act out when like you pissed off in the heat of moment, for lack of better words. Like I gotta stop being so um, politically correct with some of the things that I say. But with that being said, for me, football was an outlet for me when I was younger. Um, Started around 7 or 8 years old. No, 8. Yeah, 8 years old. I started, um, and at first, football, like I was just a big guy, and so things are easier for you when you're a big guy. But the more skilled guys who actually played, it's a difference. And so, I had to grow into myself, get more confident. I happened to be a guy on the team that would push me, and the funny thing is, he happened to follow me all the way from Pop Warner all the way to high school. So we played Pop Warner. We actually played in middle school together. Funny thing is, we was in two different middle schools, but the middle schools just so happened to share the same football team. Like that's crazy. But anyways, the only reason why we probably didn't go to college together, he had a big deal injury, and he's definitely somebody I probably would have tried to, but he was definitely on a different level as far as talent. Unfortunately, he had a situation uh, in the game where he had, uh, dislocated his hip. Um, but anyways, he was a person that pushed me, even from 8 years old on. And so, I was grateful for him. Um, but where he pushed me, like I was really, like I said, I was a big guy, but as far as with skill and technique, he was better than me. At the last minute, he knew how to lower his shoulder and different things, and it would always give me stingers. And I didn't understand how to um, deliver hits correctly at that point. And because of that, I didn't want to play. My dad wasn't going for that. So I think the next year, um, he really woke something up in me. I was 9 years old. I remember we were staying in a motel, and me and my mom and my sister and my dad took me uh, behind the motel, and he started, trying to, get me to tackle him and different things. I wasn't doing very good. I wasn't successful, but I'm a kid. I'm feeling weak. I'm feeling like this is my dad. I'm helpless or whatever. And so um, he, like I said, he was, giving me slaps over the helmet, and he, at some point, like I just snapped, and then remember picking him up and throwing him on the ground. Uh, and shoot, he was happy about that. Like, he wasn't even mad that I did that. He was proud. Like, so after that, you know, I was able to deal with Ish a lot better. And so, you know, him being a running back, being more skilled, then he started, you know, using his footwork on me. And then, you know, he'll get you out of position and then lower the shoulder. So it wasn't just smooth. He could just, you know, run into me anymore. He had to use his footwork and different things and his leverage to get an advantage against me. And so, you know, I'm grateful for him with all that. And so he was one of the people that pushed me. And like I said, my dad woke that whatever it was up in me that I needed to play the sport correctly. And so, you know, I get a little bit older. I was always too big, and so, you know, I didn't stay, you know, in Pop Warner until I was 12, like a lot of people. You know, so I had to play for my middle school team because there wasn't no weight limit with them. And so, you know, I think they allowed me to come back for a tournament and different things, but yeah, I couldn't play with my Pee Wee team. And so on the middle school team, you know, I was able to play different positions and different things, and that, you know, opened up a position, you know, an opportunity for me to play running back. You know, my hands start getting better, and, you know, they can use me, you know, at different places. My hand wasn't just in the dirt anymore. And so, you know, that was big for me in my development with it. And then getting to high school and different things, you know, I was really getting into myself. Actually, funny thing, I think I might have talked about this on Facebook, but right before high school, and this is a crazy situation that I tell people, I don't know if I said it, but it's just funny how stuff works. And that's why it's good to always be real and honest. Like, but I've been in a lot of situations like this. But so I'm at a football tournament, and I might be like a year older than I'm supposed to be. So I'm like 13, and everybody else is like 12. And I was getting ready to go into high school, but they had high school coaches out there scouting people. And I remember I was doing good. I was playing receiver, and it was like just experience at that point. And I remember the coach from St. X, which is, you know, one of the biggest schools in the city. He seen me out there, and he was like, "Hey man, what school you going to?" And I was like, "I'm going to Withrow." And he was like, "Man, that's a good program. You know, Doc Gamble, he a good coach. You're gonna be in good hands over there." And when I look back at that situation, it was like, man, if I was there as myself, what I was supposed to be, you know, that was an opportunity missed. But either way, that was just part of my football journey. So I just thought I had that. But going into high school, I'm, you know, starting to get better, starting to really grow into myself. And now I'm really thumping. It ain't, you know, too much, you know, a lot of people can do with me. Like, I remember I did my boy Lattice bad one time, and I think the thing, like, people knew I was a good guy, but I think after high school, people might have remembered me as a bad guy in some instances on a football field because of how I would just hit people and just get up. I probably helped some people up, but I just get up and move on. And it was like, I know it felt like bad intentions. The reason why I'm bringing up my boy Lattice is because one practice, I had hit him. And I knew it was a bad hit, but it was almost like I didn't even feel him. Like, it was like when I hit him, he like went underneath me, like on some other stuff. But he was like, "Man, you hit like," he was like, "You hit like ain't nobody there." He was like, "You hit like you ain't got no regard for your body." And I didn't really recognize that until we started watching film and different things, and you would see, you know, me lunging at people, which ain't always a good thing. As I said, my feet wasn't always, up to par. I was always heavier and out of shape up until my senior year. And that's when I was really fluid with a lot of different things. But our team was so good my senior year, I didn't have to, um, overdo things. It was probably a couple games where I had to take over, but we was just so good in different areas. It wasn't, one person who was dominating. And so, having that as an outlet that whole time, and then going into college, I got redshirted, and so it became less of an outlet at that point. Um, and not saying, like I said, I never was an angry kid. I never was like struck. Well, at a certain point, I was fighting when I was younger, but after going to church and get baptized and different things, it was like that part of me changed. So I wasn't ever a brawler, but I would fight like for whatever reason. If people said something crazy, people said something about my mama, people said something, whatever, I was just ready to fight. Um, but as I said, after getting baptized and different things, that kind of fell off of me. Um, Not saying that I won't, as I said, it's different. I know he's in control of it. Um, and so while I still was trying to manage that anger without having an outlet at this point, redshirting me, I started going through depression, um, settling for screens and different things. I would talk to my girlfriend in college, and she was in Ohio still, or I was in Ohio. She was back in Cincinnati still, and I was in Tiffin. But I would talk to her for hours after class, barely do homework, play the PlayStation. Like, that was just my routine. And now that I look back on certain things, I realize I was depressed, but I couldn't explain it because I'm still trying to be normal. And in some ways I knew I was, but it was like, because I guess I never really was able to express things with people. I learned to keep things to myself. And so, unfortunately, I got into it with some friends, and then I had decided, I'm like, I'm done with this experiment. I'm going back to Cincinnati. And unfortunately, they had followed me back here. I wish I would have stuck it out, because I felt, and those guys doing good, but at that point, I felt like I had something to do with them giving up on their dream, because I gave up on my dream. They was really behind me. They knew how good I was. They wanted. They was mad when I got redshirted. They wasn't even mad. They was mad, obviously, not being able to play, but they was more mad because they knew I was physically ready. They wanted to see me in action. They're like, I want to see what it looked like when he hit a college boy or whatever. So, unfortunately, that was just the end of my football story at that point. Get back to Cincinnati for a little while. Start working. Then I ended up running into a friend from high school, one of the guys I played football with. And then I was able to play semi-pro. Now I was a broke semi-pro nigga. I know people, they gonna use that later, but anyways, I was out there not getting paid. At that point, I was still young, so I don't think I got hurt that year. I was probably like 22-ish. I don't think I got any injuries. I was messing people up. No, I did get injured that year. I pulled a groin. That's when I thought I was breaking down at that point. I'm like, oh, snap. But I pulled a groin in the middle of the game and kept playing. Ended up playing the next game, too. I don't even know how, but my body weird. I just keep going. And that's part of my problem. Never learning how to rest and sit down. And that adrenaline or whatever. But after that, I think it was about 4 more years till I was able to play football again. In between there, we was doing flag football and different things like that. Of course, I was playing basketball all day long, and I got better too. Not saying I ain't on no NBA player level, but in my mind, I can go out there and give you 10, 5, 5, and 5. I could do something like that, something reasonable. And I know people probably laugh, and they will laugh about that. But now I got decent with hoop to the point where I went to Job Corps, and it was guys that they hoop, like they hoop, like dude got a ball on the string, just. But one thing I knew how to do is play defense. I'm gonna rebound. I'm gonna always go for the best player. I don't care who he is. I don't care how much he do me bad. And going through all of that, getting more confident in that. Basketball was an outlet for a second until I got a little bit older, got a son, got more responsibilities, and so. I didn't really have good outlets with anger, and because of that, and always using football as a crutch for that, I believe, that caused a lot of reactions, a lot of depression and different things that I went through. And I want to say if you are using something like football as an outlet, and I remember I told my grandma this. My grandma saved and all of that, but I was like, I would use football as an outlet for my anger, and she was like, well, you're not supposed to be playing it angry. I'm like, I'm not playing it in rage, like trying to hurt somebody, but it's like I know how to control it. It's like for the split moment, I guess me and that person don't matter. And so that's how I play reckless abandon. And it hurt me because I didn't take care of my body enough. It was just, stuff was too natural for me. And because, I didn't necessarily have, a presence in the home or whatever, after a game, I get home, probably drink a Faygo or something, eat some honey buns, go out there, go to practice the next day. When I figured out I couldn't eat like that and play football at the same time was in high school, in 2 days. That's when I figured out, hey, I gotta switch this up, because I think I ate McDonald's. And bro, just thinking about that, I know anybody that plays sports, bro, you eat McDonald's for fuel on a 2 a day. I know Chad Johnson probably will speak different, but for me, my body was tore up, bro. Like, that was the worst mistake ever, and I realized, nope, peanut butter and jelly. Something light, but something that's gonna, keep me good. And so anyways, not being able to use that as an outlet, I think caused a lot of traumas in many different ways, because I also found joy in it. I was good at it. And then, having to try to figure out now what I'm going to do after it. Not saying I don't still want to be around it. At some point I do. But I know I need to be a better influence for, I don't want to be a repeat of what the kids see now, in my opinion. I want to be a better, not saying it ain't no good coaches out there, but it's too much ratchetness going on. And anyways, I ain't going to get into all that, but I've been able to live with the fact that I'm never going to play football again. As I said, I gave that up about age 27. And, since then, I've just been trying to work and, find different outlets or different things athletically where, it keep me active. But over the years, those things have dwindled as well, because my circle has gotten smaller and smaller and smaller, and other people getting older, other people ain't, I guess, physical specimens like me. So, Lord, forgive me. I ain't trying to be egotistical on here. But, yeah, a lot of people don't have that motor, I guess. And so it's hard to get out there with guys my age now. I got to get out there and run with the, young boys, which helped me out. But them new moves, bro, if you ain't ready for them, you better brace yourself. And so, to anybody who has similar experiences, just try to find productive outlets. Don't unleash, the anger on your family, because you can't do certain things like you want to do or whatever, or even through, the trauma of those sports or whatever, going through injuries and different things. Try to maintain your composure around who matters, because you end up hurting a lot of different people through the things that you go through. And so you got to find outlet as soon as possible after you figure out your playing career is over. And so that's part of my story. Just want to share that for somebody real quick. Peace.